look at it this way. You cannot go to jail without a judge. But with a judge, those who suffer a substance use disorder can have hope. They can have real change in their life. And we know why. We know why that their sobriety is a symptom of the long-term recovery that they're in a drug treatment court. We know after 30 years of drug treatment court that the evidence is in, and to use a term that we're all familiar with, beyond a reasonable doubt. Drug courts are the most successful intervention in the criminal justice system, but sadly the most successful intervention in terms of recovery from this disease. Why? The answers are rather simple. It's the concept of using things that work, what we call evidence-based practices over a long period of time. What is a drug treatment court? It's an evidence-based practice. What does it really do? It identifies, it works on risk and need principles, and by that I mean prognostic risks. We know who our substance use disordered people are, and it works with criminogenic needs. How are we going to begin to treat these systems that are symptomatic and the causes of their long-term substance use disorder? So that's where the evidence-based practices come in. We want to use things that work. We can't lock this disease away. You cannot do it. Incapacitation does not work. So what are we doing? So we identify them, we identify them quickly. There's no reason for them to stay in jail. We identify them quickly if they have a substance use disorder and they don't have a violent crime or a sex offense, then they immediately can qualify for the court. So what happens when they come in? Well, we go along the spectrum of whatever it takes. Whatever it is in terms of treatment, treatment's the number one priority. Everything else starts to go back in priority. So if it's treatment is a priority, then whether it's long-term inpatient treatment, followed up by halfway house for those who are environmentally challenged, meaning they have nowhere to live. They don't have a family to take them back. And then we work with a number of recovery homes that they go to afterwards. So you're now talking about the start of drug court is so structured because the inpatient treatment, that's not a cure. Your kids or your loved ones or anyone else talks about, I'll be okay, I'm going to rehab. Rehab is what you do to get out of trouble, to get your parents off your back, to get some judge to buy in it's okay. 30 days with this disease ain't going to cut it. In my court, our court lasts anywhere between 18 and 36 months. So what do? What is the main thing is you don't have any kind of recovery program unless you have accountability. The accountability is your drug testing. Okay? Your accountability is who you're hanging around with. If you're hanging around with creepy people, then you're going to keep doing those kind of things that trap you in the world of your addiction. So what these pro-social type of probation officers are is how do they begin to habilitate? You got to start habilitating these individuals. So beginning to have a system of recovery that's going to habilitate the individuals, that's where the accountability comes in. Work. We make sure that all our people are working. They will all eventually get jobs. If not, they're in long-term community service, those who might be on Social Security disability or something that can't. But they're always doing a pro-sober, pro-social activity. Now, the last thing is drug court. Why does it work? It's not just because of me or the judge. I follow what we call these best practices or key components, what we know works. All of them studied, all of them researched, because when you have something around for 30 years, we can look at each one of those evidence-based practices and show why it works. And if you remove it from a program, why the outcomes aren't the same. So what do we learn? So the drug court, we use behavior modification. It's all about incentives and sanctions. We want to incentivize every positive recovery behavior that the participant can do. Everything. The incentives and the sanctions are, if you have a recovery behavior, we will lay on gift cards, we'll take off fines and costs, we'll applaud, the judge comes down and shakes your hand, there's everybody cheering. Pretty amazing to watch. But it's pretty amazing on what it's doing in the brain of the recovering person. It is reconnecting pathways to allow them to make these choices in their lives. Sanctions, what are we doing? Hey, you got a positive urine. Hey, go to jail. It's not how it works. Not using the drug is what we call a distal goal. That's down the road. Showing up at treatment, that's proximal. Go to treatment. Go to your meetings. Don't hang out with knuckleheads. The things that we can control on a daily basis in their lives. That's what you sanction. So what is your sanction? To say, oh, well, I don't know, maybe you'll have to go sit in the box, or you're going to have a curfew, or you're going to have to write, an essay, or you're going to have to do this community service. They keep on doing it. Well, what kind of jail sanction? Maybe 24 hours? We call them focus sanctions. Focus on the behavior, and you watch it change. So, again, this is Skinnerian behavior modification. Nothing more, nothing less. The brain begins to change. Why? Long term. It's all about long term. I can't say anything else. It's a criminal justice program, so we measure them by what we call recidivism. And recidivism can start with picking up and using, but recidivism is either a new arrest or a return back on a probation violation or the like, always in this particular disease because they've picked up a drug or alcohol. So normally, left untreated and not in a drug treatment court, we know at about 75% of those 80% that make up the criminal justice system that have a substance use disorder, about 75% left untreated will return. Nature of the disease, people, death, long-term incarceration. Death, that's what happens. So how do we know it works? Well, I've been around, for 12 years. We've had about 550 graduates, okay? We've had about 65 drug-free babies that have been born in there. More importantly are the drug-free parents. That is the people who have their children and now can be part of their children's lives, so that you start to break this intergenerational cycle of substance use disorder in families. To see the look in their eyes, to see the hope in their hearts of what they do, it's incredible.